A 14-year-old girl saw the sky turn green and ran towards 70 Hell's Angels, screaming about a tornado. Nobody listened until she climbed on a table and gave them 8 minutes to save everything they owned. 3 minutes after the last bike was inside, an EF3 tornado tore the bar apart. She disappeared into the storm. But the bikers never forgot. When they found her 2 weeks later, what they discovered made 300 of them return to that town. Not to thank her, but to transform it. If this satisfies your heart, please like, comment, and follow. Sophie Martinez saw death in the sky. She was walking home from the library, the only place in Cedar Mill, Texas, where nobody bothered her, when she felt it. That stillness, that pressure in her ears, that electric taste in the air that her grandmother had taught her to recognize before she died. Storm coming, bad one. Sophie looked west. The clouds weren't just dark, they were green, that sickly, unnatural green that meant only one thing in Tornado Alley: run, hide, pray. But Sophie didn't run home. Home was a mile away. She would never make it. And besides, there were people who didn't know. People who couldn't see what she could see. The Thunder Road Bar was 2 blocks ahead. The annual Hell's Angels rally was in full swing. 70 motorcycles lined up in the parking lot like sleeping dragons, chrome gleaming, engines cooling. Their owners were inside, drinking, laughing, completely unaware. Sophie had lived in Cedar Mill her whole life. She knew the Hell's Angels came every June. She knew the townspeople were afraid of them. She knew her mother would kill her for going anywhere near that bar, but she also knew what an EF3 tornado did to exposed vehicles. She ran. The parking lot was chaos. Music blared from inside the bar. Men in leather vests spilled out onto the patio, beers in hand, telling stories and slapping backs. Nobody was looking at the sky. Sophie pushed through the crowd, searching for someone, anyone, who would listen. "Excuse me, there's a storm coming. You need to move your bikes." A bearded man glanced at her and laughed. "Sure thing, sweetheart. Run along home." "I'm serious. Look at the sky. It's green. That means—" "I know what green sky means. I've been riding through storms for 30 years. This ain't nothing." Sophie wanted to scream. These men thought they knew everything, thought they were invincible. But they hadn't seen what she had seen. The tornado that killed her grandmother, that destroyed half of her elementary school, that taught her to read clouds like other kids read books. She had 8 minutes, maybe less. Sophie did something crazy. She climbed onto a picnic table in the middle of the patio, stood up, and screamed at the top of her lungs. "Listen to me. You have 8 minutes before a tornado destroys everything you own. Look at the sky. Look at it." Silence. 70 men stared at this skinny teenager standing on a table, wild-eyed and desperate. Then one of them, the biggest, the oldest, with a patch that said President, stepped forward. He looked at Sophie, then he looked at the sky. His face went pale. "She's right, everyone move, now!" The next 7 minutes were controlled chaos. Sophie had never seen anything move so fast. 70 men became a single organism, keys appearing, engines roaring, bikes rolling toward the old barn behind the bar that the owner used for storage. "Keep 'em coming! Tight formation! No scratches!" Sophie stood in the middle of it, directing traffic like she'd done it her whole life. This bike here, that one there. Stacked them close but careful. The president, she learned later his name was Grizzly, worked alongside his brothers, sweat pouring down his face. "How much time?" he shouted. Sophie looked at the sky. The rotation was visible now, a funnel reaching down like the finger of an angry god. 3 minutes, maybe 2. Everyone inside, now! They made it with seconds to spare. The barn doors slammed shut. Sophie pressed herself against the wall, surrounded by men twice her size, listening to the world end. The sound was like a freight train, like 1,000 jets taking off at once. The barn shook. Boards creaked. Something outside exploded. The bar, Sophie realized later. The entire building, lifted and scattered like leaves. Then silence. Sophie opened her eyes. She was alive. They were all alive. "Holy hell," someone whispered. Grizzly pushed open the barn door. Where the Thunder Road bar had stood, there was nothing. Rubble, debris, the twisted remains of cars that had been in the parking lot. The oak tree that had shaded the patio for 50 years was gone, ripped from the ground and thrown a quarter-mile away. But in the barn, 70 Harleys sat untouched. Millions of dollars in machines, decades of memories. Safe, because a 14-year-old girl had seen death in the sky and refused to let it win. Grizzly turned to thank her. But Sophie was gone. She had slipped away during the chaos, not because she wanted gratitude. Sophie had learned long ago not to expect kindness from strangers. She had done what needed to be done. That was enough. Besides, she had to get home, had to make sure her mother was okay, had to see what the tornado had left behind. What it had left behind was devastation. Cedar Mill looked like a war zone. Houses flattened, power lines down, trees scattered across roads like broken bones. Emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Sophie ran the whole way home, heart pounding, praying to a God she wasn't sure she believed in. The apartment was still standing, barely. Windows shattered, roof partially collapsed, but standing. Her mother was inside, huddled in the bathroom, crying. "Sophie, oh God, Sophie!" Maria Martinez grabbed her daughter and held on like she'd never let go. "I thought you were dead. I thought the tornado got you." "I'm okay, Mom, I'm okay." "Where were you?" Sophie hesitated. "The library. I hid in the basement." It wasn't entirely a lie. She had been at the library before. Her mother didn't need to know about the bikers, didn't need to know what Sophie had done. It would only worry her. Some things were better kept secret. The next 2 weeks were a blur. Cedar Mill struggled to recover. FEMA came, assessed damage, made promises nobody believed. Insurance adjusters swarmed like vultures. Neighbors helped neighbors clear debris, salvage belongings, rebuild what could be rebuilt. Sophie's school, Cedar Mill High, was not among the buildings that could be rebuilt. The tornado had hit it directly, 3 wings destroyed. The gymnasium collapsed. The library, Sophie's sanctuary, reduced to rubble. Classes resumed in trailers set up in the parking lot. No air conditioning in the Texas summer. No proper ventilation. 40 kids crammed into spaces meant for 20, sweating through lessons that seemed pointless when their whole world had fallen apart. Sophie endured. She was good at enduring. 4 years of high school had taught her that. 4 years of being invisible, of being the weird girl who talked to herself and read too many books, of being the target, never the worst target, but enough to make every day a small war. The bullying had started in 6th grade, subtle at first, whispers, laughter, exclusion, then less subtle, notes in her locker. Accidents in the hallway, a group of girls who made it their mission to remind Sophie that she didn't belong. She had never told anyone, not her mother, who worked 2 jobs and didn't need more problems, not teachers, who had enough to deal with, not friends, because Sophie didn't have friends. She just endured, but the tornado made everything worse. The cramped trailers, the stress, the heat, the loss of the library, her only refuge, and Brittany Cole, who seemed to have decided that Sophie's suffering wasn't quite complete. "Hey, freak!" Brittany blocked her path between trailers. "Heard you were wandering around during the tornado instead of hiding like a normal person. What were you doing? Talking to the storm?" Sophie said nothing. Eye contact made it worse. "I asked you a question, freak. I was just walking home." "Liar! Someone said they saw you near the Thunder Road. You know, where those disgusting bikers hang out." Brittany's smile was poison. "Were you there, Sophie? Were you hanging out with criminals? Is that your kind of people?" Sophie felt her face burn. "I wasn't." "Leave her alone," a voice from behind. Sophie turned. A boy she vaguely recognized, Jake something from her English class, was standing there with his arms crossed. Brittany laughed. "Oh, look, the freak has a boyfriend. I said leave her alone. You want to pick on someone, pick on me." Brittany considered it, decided Jake wasn't worth the trouble, flipped her hair. "Whatever. You two deserve each other." She walked away, her friends trailing like hyenas. Sophie looked at Jake. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did. He shrugged. I saw what you did at the rally. I was there with my uncle. Sophie's blood went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You're the girl who saved 70 Harleys. My uncle won't shut up about it. Jake grinned. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. But you should know. Grizzly's been looking for you. He wants to say thank you. I don't need thanks. Maybe not, but he needs to give it. Jake handed her a folded piece of paper. That's the clubhouse address. If you change your mind. He walked away. Sophie looked at the paper in her hand. She should throw it away. Should forget about the bikers and the storm and everything else. But something made her keep it. Grizzly found her 3 days later. Not at the clubhouse. Sophie had never gone, but at the library or what was left of it. She had been volunteering after school, helping salvage books from the wreckage. Something to do. Something that felt useful. She was carrying a box of waterlogged encyclopedias when she saw him. A massive man on a massive motorcycle parked at the curb watching her. Sophie froze. Grizzly dismounted, walked toward her. Every step deliberate, unhurried. Sophie Martinez? How do you know my name? Asked around. You're not easy to find. He stopped a few feet away. I owe you a thank you. You don't owe me anything. 70 bikes, millions of dollars, 30 years of memories. You saved all of it. Grizzly's voice was gravel and iron. In my world, that's a debt. I didn't do it for a debt. I did it because it was the right thing to do. I know. That's why the debt matters. He studied her. You look tired. Everyone's tired. The whole town is tired. Your school got hit pretty bad. Yeah. You go there. Cedar Mill High. Sophie nodded. Grizzly was quiet for a moment, looking at her, looking at the destroyed library, looking at something Sophie couldn't see. What's it like? Going to school in trailers. Hot, crowded, miserable. Sophie shrugged. But at least we still have school. That's a low bar. It's the bar we've got. Grizzly nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He handed her a card, plain white, with a phone number. You ever need anything at all, you call that number. Day or night. I'm fine. I know you are, but the offer stands. He turned back toward his bike. One more question. Yeah? Those girls, the ones I saw talking to you earlier. They friends of yours? Sophie's face went hot. She hadn't realized anyone was watching. I don't have friends. That's not what I asked. Silence. They're not friends, Sophie said quietly. They're the opposite of friends. Grizzly's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went cold. I see. He got on his bike, kicked it to life, looked at her one more time. Thank you, Sophie Martinez, for seeing what nobody else saw, for acting when nobody else would. He revved the engine. I won't forget. Then he was gone. Sophie stood there, holding the card, wondering what she had just set in motion. 2 weeks later, she found out. It started with a rumble. Sophie was in class, or what passed for class in a sweltering trailer, when she heard it. Engines, lots of them, getting closer. Everyone heard it. Conversations stopped. Heads turned toward windows. The teacher, Mr. Harrison, who looked as tired and beaten as everyone else, went to the door. What in the world? Sophie pushed to a window and saw 300 motorcycles pulling into the school parking lot. Hell's Angels, not just from Texas, from Oklahoma, from Louisiana, from states Sophie couldn't even identify by the patches on their vests. 300 bikers, filling the lot, killing their engines one by one until the silence was deafening. Grizzly dismounted at the front of the formation. He was carrying a bullhorn. Students and faculty of Cedar Mill High, my name is Marcus Grizzly Stone. 3 weeks ago, a young woman from this school saved 70 of my brothers from a tornado. She asked for nothing in return. She didn't even stick around for a thank you. Sophie wanted to disappear, wanted to sink through the floor. Today, we're here to say thank you, not just to her, but to this whole community. Your school was destroyed. Your kids are learning in trailers. That's not acceptable. Not to us. He lowered the bullhorn, turned to his brothers. Let's get to work. 300 men dismounted. They had tools, lumber, equipment, supplies. They were here to rebuild. Sophie watched in stunned silence as the Hells Angels descended on her destroyed school like an army of construction workers, hammers swinging, saws buzzing, men who looked like they could tear the world apart instead, choosing to put it back together. Jake appeared beside her. "Still think you don't need thanks?" Sophie couldn't answer. She was crying too hard. The rebuild took 6 weeks. 300 Hells Angels worked in shifts, some staying for days, others rotating in from chapters across the country. They slept in tents on the football field, ate meals provided by grateful townspeople, and worked from sunrise to sunset. Cedar Mill didn't know what to make of it. These were the men mothers warned their children about, the criminals, the outlaws, the monsters. And here they were, rebuilding a school. Local news came first, then state. The national. CNN ran a segment called Angels in Leather. Biker gang rebuilds tornado-ravaged school. The story went viral. Donations poured in from across the country. But the Hells Angels didn't want credit. "This isn't about us," Grizzly told reporters. "This is about a community that got knocked down and deserves help getting back up. We're just the hands." "But why? Why would a motorcycle club do this?" Grizzly looked at the camera. Behind him, his brothers hammered and sawed and sweated. "Because someone asked us to, not in words, in action. A young woman saw trouble coming and ran toward it instead of away. She saved something precious to us, without expecting anything in return." He paused. "That's the kind of person you don't forget. That's the kind of person you honor. Can you tell us who she is?" "No, and if you're smart, you won't try to find out. She doesn't want attention. She wants her school back." Grizzly turned away. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got work to do." Sophie tried to stay invisible. It was impossible. Everyone knew, the whole school, the whole town, the girl who saved the bikers, the girl who brought 300 Hells Angels to Cedar Mill. Some people looked at her with awe, some with suspicion, some, like Brittany Cole, with pure hatred. "Think you're special now?" Brittany cornered her in the temporary bathroom trailer. "Think those criminals make you somebody?" Sophie said nothing. "You're still nobody. You're still a freak. When they leave, you'll still be alone." "Maybe, but at least I did something." Sophie met Brittany's eyes for the first time in 4 years. "What have you ever done except tear people down?" Brittany's face twisted. "You little, is there a problem here?" Both girls turned. A woman stood in the doorway, tall, leather-clad, with a patch that said "Road Queen" and eyes that missed nothing. "Who are you?" Brittany demanded. "I'm someone you don't want to mess with." The woman looked at Sophie. "You okay, honey?" "I'm fine." "Good." The woman turned her gaze to Brittany. A long, cold assessment. "I know your type. Peak in high school, peak early, spend the rest of your life wondering why everything went wrong. The girl you're bullying, she's going to be someone, and you're going to be a cautionary tale." Brittany opened her mouth, closed it, pushed past them and left. The woman watched her go. "She's going to make your life harder now. They always do when you stand up to them." "I know, but it's worth it. Standing up is always worth it." She extended her hand. "I'm Maggie, Grizzly's wife." "Sophie." "I know who you are." Maggie smiled. "My husband hasn't stopped talking about you since the storm. Says you've got more courage than most of his brothers." "I just did what anyone would do." "No, honey. You did what everyone should do. That's different." Maggie studied her. "You don't have many friends, do you?" The directness caught Sophie off guard. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who's been there." Maggie leaned against the wall. "I was you once, quiet, invisible, target of every mean girl within a mile radius. Thought I'd be alone forever. What changed? I found my people. Took a while, took some wrong turns. But eventually, I found a place where being different was an asset, not a liability." She gestured vaguely toward the construction outside. "You might think we're just a bunch of outlaws, but we're also a family. And families protect each other." Sophie didn't know what to say. "Grizzly wants to talk to you. When you're ready. He's got some ideas about this school that he wants your input on." "My input? Why would he want my input?" Because you're the reason we're here, because you see things other people miss, and because—" Maggie smiled. "He likes you, which is rare. My husband doesn't like anybody." The conversation with Grizzly happened the next day. They sat in what would become the new library, just a skeleton of beams and plywood, but already taking shape. "The building's going to be better than before," Grizzly said. "Stronger, more modern. But buildings aren't enough." "What do you mean?" "I mean I've been watching this school, watching the kids, watching the way some of them treat others." His jaw tightened. "I've seen the looks you get, Sophie. The whispers, the way you walk with your head down to avoid being noticed." Sophie felt her face burn. "It's nothing. It's not nothing. It's systematic cruelty that adults ignore because it's just kids being kids." Grizzly leaned forward. "I was bullied. Did you know that before I was this? I was a skinny kid with glasses who read too much. They made my life hell. What happened? I got bigger, got meaner, became someone nobody would dare mess with." He shook his head. "That's one solution. Not a good one. It just turns victims into different kinds of predators. So what's the better solution? Community, connection, making sure no kid feels alone." Grizzly pulled out a folder. "I want to start a program here. Anti-bullying, mentorship, technical workshops where kids can learn real skills, not just lectures, actual intervention." The school board would never approve it. The school board already did. Amazing how cooperative people get when you rebuild their school for free. Grizzly smiled. "But I need someone to help run it. Someone who understands what these kids are going through. Someone they'll trust." Sophie stared at him. "You want me? You're 14. You can't run anything officially, but you can be part of it. A student liaison, someone who identifies kids who need help and connects them with mentors." He paused. "You saved 70 bikes because you saw something nobody else saw. I'm betting you can see the kids who are struggling too." Sophie thought about the hallways, the cafeteria, the corners where invisible kids hid from visible tormentors. She saw them every day, the ones like her, the ones who had learned to make themselves small. "Yes," she said. "I'll do it." "Good." Grizzly stood up, extended his hand. "Welcome to the team, Sophie Martinez." She shook it. Her hand was tiny in his, but her grip was firm. "Thank you for everything. Don't thank me, thank the storm. It brought you to us." He smiled. "Some things are meant to be." The new Cedar Mill High opened 3 months after the tornado. It was unrecognizable, not just rebuilt, transformed. A state-of-the-art library with twice the books. A workshop wing with tools and equipment for technical education. A counseling center staffed by professionals who actually listened. And in the main hallway, a mural that took up an entire wall. The mural showed a storm, dark clouds, green sky, a tornado reaching down from heaven. But in the center, a figure stood tall. A young woman with her arms raised, facing the destruction without fear. Beneath it, a plaque. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear." Sophie had tried to stop them from making it about her, had begged them to keep her anonymous. Grizzly had compromised. The figure in the mural had no face, no identifying features, just a silhouette. But everyone knew, everyone always knew. The difference was, now it didn't feel like a target on her back. It felt like armor. The mentorship program launched the same week. 20 Hells Angels volunteered. Not the scariest ones, but members who had skills to teach and patience to share. They came on weekends, running workshops on motorcycle mechanics, woodworking, welding, electrical work. But the more important work happened in smaller rooms, support groups, one-on-one conversations, a space where kids who felt alone could find out they weren't. Sophie was everywhere, identifying struggling students, making introductions, following up to make sure connections stuck. She found a 7th grader named Marcus, who hadn't spoken in class all year. Introduced him to a biker named Tiny, ironically the biggest man Sophie had ever seen, who taught him chess and listened to his stories about being the only black kid in his neighborhood. She found a sophomore named Jennifer, who cut herself in bathroom stalls and thought nobody noticed. Connected her with Maggie, who had her own scars and her own story and her own path to healing. She found a senior named David, who was terrified to come out to his family, matched him with a biker named Compass, who had walked the same road 20 years ago and come out the other side. One by one, invisible kids became visible. One by one, alone became together. And Sophie, the girl with no friends, became the center of a community she had helped create. Brittany Cole's reckoning came in October. She had continued her campaign against Sophie, more subtle now, more careful, aware that open cruelty would bring consequences, but the whispers continued, the exclusion, the death by 1,000 cuts, until she made a mistake, a video posted to social media, Brittany and her friends mocking a freshman named Emma, a shy girl with a stutter who had become one of Sophie's first mentees. The video went viral, but not in the way Brittany intended. Within hours, Hell's Angels chapters across the country were sharing it, commenting on it, identifying Brittany and her friends by name. The backlash was immediate and overwhelming. Biker gang exposes high school bullies. The headlines wrote themselves. Brittany's parents were flooded with calls. Her social media was overwhelmed with messages from strangers telling her exactly what they thought of her. Her college applications, early admission to 3 schools, were suddenly in jeopardy. She came to school the next day in tears. Sophie found her in the bathroom, the same bathroom where Brittany had cornered her so many times. "Happy now," Brittany sobbed. "You ruined my life." Sophie could have been cruel, could have returned every bit of pain Brittany had inflicted. Instead, she sat down next to her. "I didn't do this. Your choices did this." "I was just joking. It was just a stupid video." It wasn't just a video. It was years of making people feel worthless, making them dread coming to school, making them hate themselves. Sophie's voice was quiet but firm. "Emma cried for 3 hours after that video. Did you know that? She wanted to kill herself. She told me that." Brittany's face crumpled. I didn't mean." "Nobody ever means it, but you did it anyway, over and over, because it made you feel powerful." Sophie stood up. "I'm not going to pretend we're friends, but I'm not going to destroy you either. You've got a choice now. Keep being who you were, or become someone better." She walked to the door, stopped. "The mentorship program has a session tonight. For people who want to change. You should come." She left. Brittany came that night. It was the beginning of something nobody expected. 1 year after the tornado, Cedar Mill held a celebration. The town square was packed. Food trucks lined the streets. A stage had been set up in front of the new school, which gleamed in the summer sun. 300 Hell's Angels rode in at noon, the same formation as before. The same thunder of engines, but this time the town didn't watch in fear. They watched in gratitude. Grizzly took the stage to cheers and applause. A year ago, this town was devastated, homes destroyed, school destroyed, hope destroyed. He looked out at the crowd. "But you rebuilt, not just the buildings, the community. You came together in ways nobody expected." He paused. "I want to recognize someone today, someone who started all of this. She didn't ask for attention, didn't want it, but she deserves it." Sophie felt hands pushing her toward the stage. Jake on one side, Emma on the other. Behind them, Marcus and Jennifer and David and a dozen other kids she had helped over the past year. "Sophie Martinez, come up here." She climbed the stairs on shaking legs. Grizzly pulled her into a hug. This young woman saw a storm coming and ran toward danger instead of away from it. "She saved our bikes, our memories, our brothers' lives. And when we came here to repay that debt, we found something even more important. A community that needed help, and a girl who knew exactly how to provide it." He turned to face her. "In the past year, you've helped create a mentorship program that's become a model for schools across the state. You've connected hundreds of struggling kids with people who care. You've turned enemies into allies and isolation into community." Sophie was crying. She couldn't help it. "The Hell's Angels don't give this out often. To women, almost never. But you've earned it." He reached into his vest and pulled out a patch, custom made. A tornado with a figure standing against it. Honorary member, for life. Wherever you go, whatever you need, you have brothers at your back. The crowd exploded. Sophie looked at the patch in her hands, looked at the 300 bikers applauding her, looked at the kids she had helped, her kids now, in a way, cheering louder than anyone. I don't know what to say, she managed. Say you'll keep going, keep seeing what others miss, keep running toward trouble instead of away. Grizzly smiled. That's all we ask. I will. I promise. Epilogue. 5 years later. Sophie Martinez was 19 years old. She stood at a podium in Austin, Texas, addressing a conference on youth mental health. Behind her, a screen showed statistics. The Cedar Mill mentorship program had been replicated in 47 schools across 3 states. Teenage suicide rates in participating districts had dropped 34%. Bullying incidents had decreased by half. People ask me how it started, she said, how a 14-year-old girl ended up creating a movement. She smiled. The truth is, it didn't start with me. It started with a storm, with 70 motorcycles I couldn't bear to see destroyed, with men who were supposed to be monsters, but turned out to be exactly what our community needed. She clicked to a photo, the mural in Cedar Mill High, the faceless figure facing the tornado. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and acting anyway. It's about seeing something wrong and refusing to accept it. It's about running toward danger when everyone else runs away. She looked at the audience. Educators, counselors, parents, people who wanted to change things but didn't know how. Every one of you can be that figure. Every one of you can face the storm. All it takes is deciding that the status quo isn't good enough, that kids deserve better, that you're going to be the one to give it to them. She stepped back from the podium. Thank you. The applause was thunderous. In the back of the room, a large man in a leather vest wiped his eyes. Maggie squeezed his hand. Told you she'd be someone, she whispered. Yeah, Grizzly said. You did. That night, Sophie rode through Cedar Mill on the back of a Harley. Jake was driving. He'd gotten his license 2 years ago, become a prospect with the local chapter. They weren't together romantically, but they were family in a deeper way. They passed the Thunder Road bar, rebuilt and thriving, past the school, lights glowing in the evening darkness, past the town square where everything had changed. Sophie thought about the girl she had been, invisible, alone, convinced she would never matter. She thought about the girl she had become, a leader, a connector, someone who mattered more than she ever imagined, all because she had seen a storm coming and refused to look away. The bike roared through the Texas night. Sophie closed her eyes and smiled. Whatever storms came next, she would be ready. She always was. The end